Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I am your host, Kris Murray. Childcare leaders around the globe are breaking through challenges, leading the way in innovation, testing new best practices, and impacting children and families in a much more powerful and positive way than ever before. Each week, join me for interviews with early childhood leaders and experts that will leave you inspired to become the next childcare rockstar. Now, let's go. This is episode 117 of Childcare Rockstar Radio, featuring Andre Norman. Welcome back to the podcast. I am super thrilled that you are here and that you get to sit in on an amazing conversation that I had today here on the podcast with Mr. Andre Norman. Andre is a special human being. He leads the Academy of Hope. He is the ambassador of hope, and I can't wait for you to meet him. But before we dig in, let me let you know that this episode of Childcare Rockstar Radio is sponsored in part by Brightwheel, the all-in-one software to help you run your preschool or childcare business. This new year, spend less time managing tuition billing and more time growing your childcare business. With Brightwheel, parents can set up autopay so you get paid on time every time. You'll never chase a late payment again. Visit www.mybrightwheel.com/rockstar to get 50% off your first 3 months of Brightwheel. Again, that's www.mybrightwheel.com/rockstar to get 50% off your first 3 months. They're friends of ours. Please go check them out. Folks that we work with love Brightwheel, and parents do too, and you won't regret it. So check out Brightwheel today. All right, here we are in the podcast, and I am again excited that you're here. I'm titling this episode, Life Gives to the Giver. And I want to shout out to Mr. Joe Polish, who really coined that phrase, potentially trademarked the phrase. So I want to give him full credit for it. But I met Andre through Joe, and has been a relationship that I'm so grateful to have in my life with Mr. Andre Norman. And he truly, truly lives and breathes and embodies what it means to be a giver. And you're going to learn all about that and how that shows up and plays out to all levels of human beings that Andre comes in contact with, from young kids to preteens to teenagers to young adults, and then adults who are in the prison system. And he's also really actively working with young teens and young adults who he's trying to help them actually avoid going to prison in the first place. And his story is incredible. His personal story, you will hear how he landed in prison himself and turned his life around while in prison, and the process that he went through. And the reason why I find this to be so impactful and important is because all of us have had times in our life that we have felt imprisoned, trapped, caught in a wrong place. We know in our heart it's not what our path was meant to be for us, but we've landed there anyway. And so how do we turn it around? How do we shift our life to be something that we're proud of and that we are happy with? So if you're living a life right now that you know is troubled, unhappy, not meant for you, underperforming, or you're in your own prison, this episode is particularly for you, but each and every one of you will get something out of this episode. I have no doubt. I am going into a pretty fun February as I record this. We're headed into a challenge next week called the Expand Your Empire Challenge, and several hundred of you have already signed up for it, and I'm so excited to be teaching another big, exciting challenge here in January of 2022, and then get to fly off to Fort Lauderdale to be with 340 Academy members and their teammates at the Academy quarterly meeting, and our agenda is jam-packed with incredible content, masterminding, sharing, fun, a themed cocktail party, which we're going to all dress up like pirates. It's a Pirates of the Caribbean cocktail party. And I'm just really, really excited to get to the beach and hang with my tribe. So that is happening the first week of February, and much of my team is also flying down. So I'm excited also to be with my teammates, my team. So that's really, really kind of the highlights of what I'm up to. A lot of fun things on the personal side as well. A lot of fun parenting things with my daughter, and just enjoying the journey. I've only got a year and a half left till empty nester status. So just trying to soak it all in, because I know before I know it, she'll be at college and I'll be a full-blown empty nester. I am looking forward to it, but I also know it's going to be hard. So with that, I want to just welcome you into the episode. Let's get to know Andre here at Childcare Rockstar Radio. And thanks for spending the time with me, especially on this episode. It's a special one. And Andre Norman is one of the most special people that I've met in my whole life. And so I'm really, really excited to bring him to you right now. Enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am excited. Today is a special day because I get to talk to my friend, Andre Norman, who is here with me at Childcare Rockstar Radio. Andre, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. I am doing great. I am doing fabulous. And I'm with you, so I'm in good company.
It's so great. It's so good to see you again, my friend. So Andre and I were in person together on stage and backstage at the Child Care Success Summit in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel. And we had a great time. And if you were there, we love seeing you. And if you weren't there, we missed you. And we'll hope to see you in Nashville this year. I don't know if Andre's coming again, but it was a treat. It was a treat, my friend, hang out with you in Stedman and go to dinner. And we raised about close to 30 grand for your
35,000.
We raised 35,000. So I'll ask you at the end of our discussion to share a little bit about your organization and how people can be part of your cause.
Cool.
So tell us, where are you right now? Where are you sitting?
I am in Maryland someplace between Virginia and Jersey. I just had a meeting. Okay. I was in Virginia in jail all day doing criminal justice outreach to men and women who are locked up. And I'm on the way to New Jersey to do some more criminal justice outreach, go to another jail. So I'm in between jails right now.
Wow.
And so I got off the highway because I didn't want to be driving and trying to do a podcast. So I'm sitting still in Maryland.
Good. And you travel all around the country and probably internationally some as well, doing amazing work for the folks who are in our prison system, jails, inmates, and also teens and people who are just troubled folk, trying to save one life at a time. I believe that's...
I mean, every life counts. You know the Starfish story. It matters to the one you just saved. It matters to the family you just saved. I've been to Tulsa, I've been to Montana, I've been to Salt Lake City, I've been to Compton, I've been to New York, I've been to Westchester, I've been to the Bronx. I go wherever people have problems, from South Carolina to Richmond, it doesn't matter. If there's a person in need, I just feel like all the time, they say, Dre, why do you go to these places? I see me as the person who's waiting for the person to show up. And I know what it's like for the person not to show up and to be too busy. So my dad was too busy, my mom was too busy, and my uncles were too busy. So I didn't fall through the cracks, it just left me on the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. So I just feel obligated to show up.
Well,
and it's a good obligation.
For me, that's a writer downer right there, which is don't be too busy for the people in your life that really matter, because one day you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to be going, you know what? I really messed up because I wasn't there for the people that really needed me when I felt like I was too busy. And then what the hell? I mean, what is life at the end of the day? What really matters in life?
My father is 81 years old this month. He's sitting in a elderly home in Connecticut. He has no one that calls him. Nobody goes to see him. And he's now wondering where all the people, you abandoned your kids, you abandoned your wife, you abandoned your mom and your cousins and your brothers and sisters, and you ran off and you went and lived your life. You had a great life for maybe 35, 40 years, but now all those other people are gone and you're sitting home alone, and you're wondering why we're not rushing to your bedside to tend to you. Mm-hmm. I don't know you. And as much as I want to help people, I mean, I want to help him. I do stuff for him, but it's just like, the disconnect is real. And you don't want to be disconnected from the people that matter most, because when you're in your nursing home or sitting at home, you can't forge relationships. Relationships are forged with time spent.
Yeah. Time spent. Not just quality time, but just time spent.
Yeah.
So
some of my best conversations were just riding in. I mean, I remember just walking home from school one time with my stepdad. Was the greatest conversation we ever had, that we never said anything. The fact that he came and got me at a low point and just walked home with me. We never said a word, but his presence says everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So people have words so everybody on my team gets bracelets every year with their My Intent word. I found out about the myintent.org bracelets that you can put your word for your year, your intention, from Joe Polish at the Genius Network Annual. And that was my first year. I got the word fire, and then I got the word joy. And then this year, my word is presence, PRESENCE. And what you just said is be present. Being present, having your presence, even if you don't say a word. It's not really about the words. It's about just yourself being present with another human being that you want to make an impact for, just be there for. But yeah, the word presence is my word for 2022, Andre. So
I would say to people, if you've ever gone to the movies by yourself, you've ever gone to a movie with somebody you like really got love for, what's the difference between sitting next to somebody you love watching the movie, not speaking, and sitting in a room by yourself watching a movie? That person makes the difference. They don't have to talk. Their presence matters. You're not alone. You're connected.
Yeah. So do you have like an elevator pitch story? Like people are like, tell us your story, Andre, and your story is so amazing. But to really properly tell it, we would have to take like an hour and then over the next hour and have you tell it. But for people that don't know you, that weren't at the summit, do you have like a abbreviated version of the key highlights?
Sure. The abbreviated version is my mom married a high school sweetheart and he went to jail. She married my dad, local hustler, who used to beat her up. I grew up watching my mom get beat up. I grew up going through the busing crisis of Boston, kids throwing rocks at us. I grew up being illiterate into the third grade. My dad walked out on us in the first grade. And then you just kind of drift and you don't really have a thing. Then I picked up the trumpet in the sixth grade. And in the ninth grade, when I joined the band, my friends told me it wasn't cool because Black people didn't play the trumpet. It was stupid. They convinced me to get rid of my dream. And when I got rid of my trumpet, I had no purpose. And with no purpose, you drift. And I drifted all the way to the state penitentiary. And when I got to prison, I found my tribe, a tribe of quitters, people who quit football, who quit band, who quit choir, who quit work, who quit on their families. And I quit on everything I had. And it was just a building full of quitters. And I fit in, and we were all miserable. We hung out together. And for 6 years, I participated in gang activity, prison activity, just getting in trouble as the script was written for me. And one day I woke up and I said, okay, no, this is stupid. I'm the king of nowhere. I want to go home and be successful. So I said, I'm going to go to Harvard University. Everybody thought I was crazy. I taught myself to read, taught myself the law. I started going to anger management, counseling, and therapy. It took me 8 years to get out of prison. And I started working with young kids around substance abuse and emotional disorders. And I decided first was Black boys and Black girls and white kids and Spanish kids. And then I started teaching professors and I started teaching business people. And for the last 22 years of my life, I've gone to over 30 countries. I worked with multiple presidents and prime ministers. I've stopped the Ferguson riots. I helped create the faith-based initiative for George W. Bush. I created violence interrupted programs. I do suicide prevention. I do corporate trainings. I'm on board of directors, helping people make better decisions with their corporate funding. And I go to conferences. I became one of the top speakers in the world. And just the whole way, just trying to find a way to be better. And in 2016, I got my fellowship to Harvard. That's the elevator pitch. And what I do now is I go to jails around the country and around the world, and I help them reorganize and speak to the people they have confined. I go to kids who are suicidal and parents who are suicidal kids and help them connect and want to stay alive and teach the parents how to connect. I go to businesses and teach. It's really communication. I'm a communication specialist, whether you need to hear something or have something spoken to you. And that's what I do. I just show up. I wake up in the morning and say, who can I be helpful to today? And I go. I work for Henry Norman Incorporated, and I love my boss. He says go. He says go, and I go.
I love that. That's good. So the moment that, you were in there with your tribe, which was, people who didn't have any life going on, they were just, drifting and losing and in prison, and you were in there with them. How did you flip the script? So what mentors were in jail with you, or how did you find inspiration to flip your script to a place of possibility from hopelessness and despair?
Well, I would say there's a lot of people who are not in prison who are part of tribes at the end of the bar who aren't going places.
Yeah.
At the end of these parties who aren't going places, who are in miserable relationships who aren't going places. And they just all have this dysfunctional, we're going to pretend to get along to go along. And they're in prison too, just in a really nice house.
That's
or a really
right.
nice bar or something. So prison is not just a penitentiary, it's the lifestyle that you live.
Well, and that's why I asked you this question, Andre, was because however you flip the script, anybody can utilize the inspiration of how you did it to apply to their life, because you're absolutely right. We all have been in a relationship, a life, a place where we haven't been happy, and we have to figure out a way to break free and move forward to our best path. Not maybe say all of us, but 99% of us, I feel, have been
all
in
of
that
us.
place. Yeah.
Well, my first step was to tell myself the truth. I had been like to be in this dysfunctional place and with this particular tribe. I had to lie to myself and tell people in me that I like where I'm at and I like what I'm doing. So I had to tell myself the truth. Andre, you don't like being in jail. You don't like being around these people. It's not working. And I told it some really hard truths. I'm Black. I'm angry. I'm a criminal. I'm violent. I don't know how to read that well. I have emotional issues. My parents aren't helping me. My sister's on drugs. And I just went through the list of things. I don't read and write well. I created a list of all the things that are bothersome in my life. Then I started working on that list one thing at a time. And I looked in the mirror and I said, what's inside of me that's stopping my dream from happening? And I wrote the list of what's stopping my dream. And I started working on those things one day at a time. And it took me 8 years to complete that list. And inside, there was an Orthodox Jewish rabbi named Natan Schaefer, who became my number one mentor in life from that day to this. And he sat me down and he taught me responsibility, accountability, forgiveness, caring, giving. The short end, he taught me how to be human. Nobody had ever taught me how to be human. It said, you don't cry, you beat them, you punch them, you stomp them, you just keep going, you don't quit until you die. He told me, no, that's wrong. And the biggest thing I had to accept is he didn't look like the help. Of all the people I dreamed of helping me, it was just like this big, strong Black guy out of the movies, the Denzel type, the Morgan Freeman type. I'm going to have this great Black man come save me because I want to be a great Black man. And I had a short Jewish white guy come save me who didn't look like anything I expected, but he had the knowledge. He had the insight, and he cared, and he was consistent, and he was good. So, and his character was solid. I'm saying his consistency was solid. His care was for real. And I came to understand is you don't judge the help, you just accept it. If I get in a car crash today, I'm not going to be, hey, what does my ambulance driver look like? What is the doctor going to look like? Just please be there and be ready. But when we come to press for help, we have these things that we put on the people that are going to help us. And I had to get past what is the help supposed to look like. And my help came in the form of an Orthodox Jewish rabbi, a Catholic priest, You know what I'm saying? There was some Catholic volunteers. And I said, you know something? These are the people.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved for 6'5", mature black Denzel to pull up and put his hand on my shoulder and say, come on, Dre, I got you. Didn't happen.
Right.
But the guy that came was the right guy. So I
Yeah.
always tell people, stop judging the help and be glad that it showed up.
Mm-hmm. Love that. So when you started making a difference for others, talk a little bit about how that impacted you. Do you remember starting to think, oh, these mentors are starting to open my eyes and I'm making this list of myself, of things that I want to change about myself, one thing at a time, 60 things. And then when did you shift into starting to make a difference for others? Was it while you were in prison and you just started helping, or talk a little bit about that?
I started working on me every single day. And because I used to be a big gang leader and now somebody in the prison, people watched what I did, and what I did mattered. So if Andre went to school, it made going to school cool. If Andre went to counseling, then going to counseling is okay. And I wasn't even aware of the impact I was having until I was sitting in a prison and I was in the classroom writing my book. And I noticed one day the class was empty. I said to the teacher, I said, how come nobody's in school? She said, nobody signs up. You can't make them. I said, do you want people in school? She said, yes. So I walked down to the hallway. I went to the principal's office. I said, yo, principal, talk to the teacher. She said she wants people in school. Do you want them? He said, yes. I walked up to the unit, to the orientation. I picked up the microphone. And I said, hey, stop what you're doing. Who doesn't have a GED? Put your hand up. I said, come down to the desk. There's about 100 guys. I said, at 1 o'clock, you're going to the school. Told the CO, get the name, send them to school at 1 o'clock, and I walked out. They said, well, who's that guy? They said, you got two choices. Go to school, you're getting stabbed later. So then I went back to the school and I told the principal, I said, you got about 100 guys coming at 1 o'clock. You better teach them. Then I went and sat down. I didn't think anything of it. Those 100 guys came and they went to class. Now the school's full. I'm still writing my book. And I would walk down the hallways and I would stop in the class and say, hey, man, how y'all doing? Just checking on y'all. Not even thinking about it. Then one day I stopped in and the teacher told me, oh, Johnny and Stevie's not here. Like, this is prison. They ain't went no place. She said, they're not here. I turned around, I walked out, went out on the big yard, and Johnny and Stevie and 6 guys are just walking the track telling lies. I said, yo, get over here. I said, both of you get to school. You're on my name. You don't mess up my name. And the guys, I said, they can't help you. I run this prison. Get your ass to school. And they went to school. And unbeknownst to me, that was my first program. I had like 300 guys get their GED because the gang leader said, you better go to school. And that's when I started realizing the impact. I just did it on a strength. I wasn't thinking about it.
Right.
But because I was in a better space, my solution was put people in school.
And you had that influencing power, that influential.
I had a big knife.
Presence and a big knife. So I love that.
I just carry a big knife too.
Well, I guess that helps.
You got to in prison, you know what I'm saying?
You got to.
You got to. You don't go swimming without a bathing suit, right? You don't walk around in prison without a knife.
Well, I don't know. Depends on where you're swimming.
I can tell you, I don't know where you're swimming, but I know I went to prison.
So let's talk about this component of significance and difference making. So I feel like now that you've started to see that you were making a difference and you had some influence to the positive, it started becoming a train that was like you were on the tracks and you were starting to make role, in
we
significance.
changed the dynamics of the prisons.
Yeah.
Because me being a boss, that means, for those who don't know, I'm the highest ranking gang member on a prison yard, which means I am the boss. I control everything inside of these walls. So whatever I'm doing is permissible. So if I'm smoking cigarettes, you can smoke cigarettes. If I'm fighting, you can fight. Whatever I'm doing is permissible for anybody else to do. So when I'm going to school is okay. If I'm going to beat up people, to beat up people is okay. So people copy what you do. You're the leader of this facility. Right. And my actions was going to class, going to programs, going to counseling, going to therapy, and being a positive person, which gave people the rights to be positive if they wanted to, versus having to pretend to be a tough guy. And I don't need school. I don't need therapy. I'm just going to be a thug. No. Well, the chief thug is going to therapy. The chief thug is going to school. The chief thug is mediating fights versus starting fights. And it just gave license to other people to live that way. Because what happens, we all follow the leader. We were tough because the guy before us was tough and the guy before him was tough. And this is just the way it is. And used car salesmen just scam people because the last guy scammed people. And there are honest used car salesmen. But we think all used car salesmen are crooks because there's just so many, and all lawyers are bad. And we just follow the trend. And in prison, these are people who follow the trend. And I changed the trend. And then when I changed the trend, it gave license to everybody else, let people breathe. Okay. Because nothing happened that I didn't co-sign. And I wasn't co-signing violence anymore because I needed to go to school. I needed the school building to be open because there's things I needed to get done because I needed not just to get out of jail, I needed to stay out of jail. And to stay out, I need these programs. And then to stay out, I need a new mindset. And to stay out, I need a community of people who are going to support this thing that I'm doing, which is bettering my life, personal development.
So talk a little bit about your book. What is it called and why did you write it? How did you get inspired to actually write a book? How did you even think that you could write a book?
I was reading a few books in prison by this time, and I read a book by a gentleman, I don't want to say his name, and I hated the book. He was a former felon who went home, and I read his life story, and he was so much not a thug. He was so much not a tough guy. He was so much not like a stand-up, what we call a reputable person. He was just like the worst to the worst, and he wrote this book. I'm like, you don't represent me. But when I finished reading his book, I was so mad. I'm like, he can't be the standard bearer for me. I went in my cell, had 5 legal patents. I started writing my book. I said, I got to write my book to counteract his book. And I wrote my book. And that's what I was doing in the school building. At the prison, I was writing my book. Then when I came home, I kept trying to hire writers to help me get it, clean it up. And then I finally, Joe Polish, John Rulin, and Cameron Harold introduced me to Tucker Max.
Nice.
And Tucker agreed to do my book. And I went to Tucker and I handed him this 420-page manuscript I've been carrying for 16 years. I said, yo, Tuck, take this manuscript. It's going to be the easiest book you've ever written. Just go knock it out and we're good. And he said, Andre, how many bestsellers have you written? New York Times. I said, none. He said, then why would I use this? He said, ask me how many I've written. He said, so do you want your book written by a bestseller author or somebody who's never written a bestseller? Right. I said, by a bestseller. He said, well, you take this manuscript and you take it home and let me go do what I do. And he helped me formulate, strategize, structure, and write a phenomenal book that made me cry.
Aww.
So Tuck's my man. Scribe. I'm about to do my second Scribe book because their process was just, for me, I'm not a super writer. They just made it so easy.
Yeah.
And so many people for 17 years was like, where's your book? Where's your book? Where's your book? And I'm not a writer. And Tucker explained to me, you're not a writer, don't try to be. You don't have to be. There are people who do what you don't do well.
Yeah. So shout out to Tucker because I know him as well. And he's a great guy. And he's helped a lot of people get books done that are excellent books and helps promote them. And so the name of your book is? The
Ambassador of Hope, turning poverty and prison into a purpose-driven life.
And I'm so blessed that you were able to give a copy of your incredible book to everybody at our summit last year. So lots of people that are watching this podcast right now have read your book.
You should have, because life gives to the giver, so says Joe Polish.
That's
so
it.
When you said, Andre, we want you to come to Vegas and speak to the group, I was like, we talked about selling the book, the book. I said, you know something? You paid me and I appreciate it. Then I needed to, so you invested in me, so I need to invest in your community. So I said, how many people, and we ordered 1,200 books, and listen, life gives to the giver.
Yeah.
And we gave 1,200 books away.
We sure did. We had an amazing, we made such an impact. You in particular made such an impact at that show, at that conference, and on so many. And I'm so grateful to be a part of, I was the conduit to which you were on stage and did that. So I want to ask you a question that might be a little controversial about life gives to the giver, because so many of our listeners and our audience and our members are heart-centered givers by nature. They give, but then they get taken advantage of. They aren't able to put boundaries around themselves, and they overgive, and then they get mad because they feel like, well, now the world is, I got a target on my back, and I overgave. So I believe that life gives to the giver. I live by that credo as well. How do we stop from overgiving? How do we put boundaries around ourselves so that we can be healthy about our giving?
Well, any tax professional should be able to help you with this. If you make a certain amount of money, the tax guy will tell you there is a line in your IRS thing that says you can give X amount of percent away, and that should be your threshold. Minimally, if you just want to do baseline, generic, whatever your tax liability says you can give based on your income, that should be your threshold. So, okay, it might be $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, who knows? Whatever your tax liability says, hey, you can give this much to charity cleanly every year, minimally or max, that could be your threshold. And then you sit down and say, okay, this is a number, $10,000. I can give $10,000 away on my taxes and it's going to benefit the family. Cool. Now let's think about where I want to give this $10,000. Don't just go around and emotionally give. You can say, January 1, I'm going to go to these 5 conferences. I'm going to set aside $2,000 per conference. I'm going to 5 of them. If there's something moves me, I'll give away $2,000 a conference, but I'm not going to exceed this number. And that's just a baseline thing. And then don't get caught up in there's always your 10,000 or your 2,000, your 200 is going to save these 5 kids. I mean, no. What happens if you didn't attend the conference? Are those 5 kids going to just perish? Most likely not. So don't feel like if you don't help somebody, they're not going to get help. God provides for everybody every day. And there's always going to be a way. You can't save everybody with every dollar. And so it's not about giving money. It's about being safe. If you're giving to the point it hurts you, then it's not worth giving.
Right.
That's not the goal. I don't want anybody to give to me that hurts them, because now it's like you defeated the purpose of giving. You need to be in a place of stability, and you need to be in a place of serenity, in a place of financial responsibility to actually give. And if you don't have money to give, you can give time, you can give in-kind resources. I had some Barry. Barry was at a conference, and at the end of the conference, it was like 15 or 30 cases of books, and they shipped them to me. And I got 15, 16, I like 30 cases of books that I went and gave out of the prison. So they didn't give me cash, they gave me leftover books, which was great. It was probably like $20,000, $30,000 worth of books that they were going to throw away because they didn't want to bring them back. It doesn't have to be cash. You can give from your heart. You can pray for people. Pray or works. I believe my grandmother taught me prayer works. It's not always, Natan never gave me a dime. Pat Dempsey, my best man at my wedding and one of my Catholic volunteers, never gave me a dime. What they gave me was more important and more valuable than money. So giving of money isn't a replacement for giving of yourself and your energy. But for those who need, we can set up a little online course on how to be safe and how do you know too much is too much. If people keep sending you emails and asking you for stuff and hitting you up, you give, life gives to the giver, but you shouldn't be requested. Somebody asked me one time, Dre, you got to come help these poor people. You have to come give this speech for free because these are poor people. And you've committed to helping poor people. I said, Yes, I have. But there doesn't have to be your poor people. I can find poor people by myself. I do not need help finding poor people. Right. And I've committed to helping poor people and just people in need, but they don't have to be your poor people or your people in need. I can find them on my own. Yeah. So don't feel overwhelmed to give to a circumstance that you're not affiliated or that doesn't touch you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think my intention for that question was not so much monetary giving. It was about our folks tend to give their heart and then help people. And then sometimes they get taken advantage of. So putting boundaries around that and
in that instance,
yeah.
one, don't give in silence. Don't do it as a lone thing. Let people around you know what you're doing, because your people will keep you safe and keep boundaries around you. If you're bad at boundaries, then go to your spouse, go to some people that you're affiliated with, your forum group or whatever group that you're, and let people know, hey, don't do things in secret, because then you have no support. Mm-hmm. Let somebody who's knowledgeable, who's disconnected from what you're doing, say, hey, I'm about to go volunteer for 20 hours. I have a bad back. I'm not moving nothing. I don't care what the circle. I'm not moving nothing, because after I move it, I'm gonna be home in bed for a week, and that's no good to me. Right. So as much as I don't care what the cause is, if I gotta move boxes, I can't do it. I have to be able to say, regardless the cause, regardless the outcome, me in bed in traction for 2 weeks is not good. Right. And if I don't know, somebody with me should say, Dre, you know you got a bad back. You can't do that. Yeah, but these are the kids, or these are the fish, or these are the whales, or these. It's always a good cause. But you need people around you who know you, love you, and will tell you, honestly, Andre, you're doing too much right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's really, really good. This is kind of well, first let's talk about Academy of Hope, and then I'll ask you this question. So Academy of Hope, that's your organization, your cause. Talk a little bit about what you do. One thing that we were so honored and felt so happy about raising $35,000 for your organization is because you are helping people, you are helping inmates, you're helping people with not a lot of hope in prison systems around the United States. You're helping drive down levels of recidivism. You're helping give people a lifeline of hope who really have nowhere else to turn. Which is so important, because I don't know anybody else that's really doing meaningful work in this area, Andre, other than you. So talk a little bit about your organization and what you guys do. Just tell us a little bit more about it in case folks want to contribute. Do you have a website? Where can people learn more?
The Academy of Hope was created because 3.5 years ago, there was a riot in South Carolina, and 7 people were murdered in the prison riot, and 30 people were wounded. The Commissioner of Corrections asked me to come down and help them. So I went in and I spoke to the prisoners. We got the riot to quell, and we started working with the leaders and the different people in the gangs. And we went from 7 dead people to 1 fist fight over the last 3 years. And we've trained people to be violence interrupters and to help people reach out behind the walls, because the gang members inside know the gang members outside. And if you want the streets to be safe, their friends and their big brothers and their big homies are the ones they listen to. They don't listen to the cops or the caseworkers. They listen to the teachers or their mothers. They listen to the big homies. So we get the big homies in the prisons to call out to the neighborhoods and mediate different fights and different beefs that are happening where people are dying. And that is the main premise. We want it to be safer for staff. We want to be safer for inmates, where there's no rapes, there's no stabbings, there's no beatings. And we want to make it safer for people coming home, for the community. Because when they come home, their kids are looking up to them, their little brothers are looking up to them, their wives and girlfriends are looking up to them or looking to them. And if they're not whole and stable, then we can't rebuild communities. And Academy of Hope's goal is to diminish violence inside, but also stop kids from going to school, going to prison. So we go to alternative schools, we go to schools in general, and help kids not go to jail. That is a primary purpose of Academy of Hope as it was created. But me, myself, a long time ago, I used to just help kids in my neighborhood that look like me. Because that's what I knew is what I understood. If you was a Black kid, I got you. I understand your pain and your trauma. But then I thought about it. It wasn't the Black guy that helped me turn my life around. So the color relation had nothing to do with helping. So now I just help people. And when we got to your conference, when I got on stage, as much as I wanted to just tell my story of Andre overcame and made it to Harvard, I looked in the audience and I felt people's pain. And I asked myself, let's talk about your kids. Let's talk about your loved ones. And we started doing, we was doing interventions in the hallway. We started, then people said, it's not about Andre. I made it about your people because they count too. And we started to say, who in here has a loved one that's struggling? Who in here has a loved one that's not all the way there? And people started coming to me at the breaks, talking about my son, my daughter, my cousin, my husband, and I just said, okay, get them on the phone. We started doing phone calls right then and there and reaching out to people and encouraging them and we talked to a few people off the ledge over a couple of days. And since when I walked out of there, I flew to a couple of cities. I went to Montana. There was a lady who had one kid in Montana. I said, listen, she came to me. She said, Andre, my daughter. I got on the plane. I flew to Montana. And we spent a day and a half with that kid. That kid is phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? She didn't turn her life around. She's on fire and she's on go. Then I went to Salt Lake City. Then I went to Atlanta. Then I'm going to Elon College to do somebody else's kid from your conference in 2 weeks. On the 18th, I speak at Elon College just because there's one kid we convinced him not to kill himself. And I back-ended it with, hey, I'm going to come see you and speak at the whole campus. Now, for the last 4 months, his whole thing is leading up to this speech. So he has a reason to live. He thinks it's me, but it's really him. So we future pace something for him that he can look forward to. And hopefully in the time that we started to the time we get there, he finds other reasons to stay alive, which he has. His life is worth living. And I'll future pace him again for 8 months. I say, hey, we can do this once a year. I got a kid from your conference who comes to my house every Saturday. We do a podcast together that goes nowhere. His mother drives him to my house. We sit in the room. I got this podcast machine. We record a podcast, and he has like 9 episodes to nothing. He has 9 episodes. We call ourselves urgent care. It's urgent care because the kid was suicidal. I went to the house. I talked to him. He's straight. So the way I keep him is when I'm in town, he literally comes to my house every weekend, and we sit in my podcast room. We record a podcast. He walks out smiling, and that's like 2.5 hours a week. Right. And for him, it's the world. Yeah. Wow. I bought him a pair of sneakers to make him feel good, and it's not like, hey, I mean, hey, I'm like, hey, you okay? You had your 1 hour, beat it. We literally to this day, I go home this weekend. He'll be there Sunday at my house. And we're gonna make a podcast. He's gonna go home with one of us cadets to set. He's just gonna have it. Even though it's never gonna hit the air, maybe it's never gonna, for him, it gives him purpose. For him, it's reason to go to school and do well because I want to go to Andre's house and make a podcast. And he's just a good kid. He's a 15-year-old kid and he's just trying to find a way. And he lost his way. So it's just, I believe Academy of Hope is for everybody. I started in prison, so I have a prison focus, but I help kids, I help adults, I help people who need hope.
Got it. And how can people find out more? What's the website?
If you want to find out more, my website is my name, andrenorman.com, AndreNorman.com. And my life is there. You go to YouTube and just put my name in, a bunch of stuff will pop up. I mean, I'm not really a social media guy because when I meet with these families, I got young kids, 15, 16. I have adults who are in really critical situations. I think it'll just be irresponsible and users to have a camera stuck in their face. So for the most part, when I go do these things, they're offline. I don't say anything. When I was in Montana, the kid who comes to my house, we don't put him on video. It's always that thing of, is it helpful to him or hurtful to him to promote? And I would never do that to a kid. So I just generally don't do, you're not going to go online and see me doing interventions. I do them all the time, but I just don't think it's fair to the family to have their information or their business in public. So just trust that I do it. Mom and dad, we might start getting testimonials from mom and dad, but I went to Tulsa this week. I gave a speech at an EO group in Tulsa. And the same thing, they came up to me after. I spent the next day for 7 hours sitting in a pizza shop, just like I'm sitting in now. And the EO members brought their kids. They brought their kids to me because their kids had problems. And I sat for 6 hours doing family therapy every half hour for 6 hours.
Wow. Well, with what the world is going through right now, there's no better time that you are more needed. You are an angel that is heaven sent. I'm convinced of it. You can poo-poo that, but you are the real deal. And I loved having you, and know that you did make a difference for all of those people, because I talked to those clients and I talked to those people on my team that had you there. And it's a phenomenal thing that you do, Andre. It's just giving of your time, being present. It ties back to where we started on this podcast, which is being present, showing up for people that need you, whether they're kids, teens, young adults, or adults. And making a difference and giving, because life gives to the giver. And that's what you embody for me. So I have one more question for you. If you could have a gigantic billboard to send a message to the world, what would it say?
Get counseling. Go to counseling is okay.
Seek help. No.
No. Counseling. Listen,
Yeah.
I would say counseling is
Okay.
self-care is selfish, but
Right.
baseline is counseling is okay.
Okay.
Because there's a stigma around getting help.
Right.
So counseling is okay. And I do a form of counseling. You do a form of counseling, whether it's business coaching. Most business coaching scenarios turn into counseling. When I go to Genius, it's 60% therapy, 40% business.
Yep.
So counseling is okay.
Yeah. Agree. Awesome. Thank you so much. The book is The Ambassador of Hope by Andre Norman. Check him out at andrenorman.com. Andre, we just love you. My team loves you. I love you. And my tribe, the Academy, Child Care Success Academy, we all love you too. We all fell in love with you in Vegas. And what you're doing for the world is phenomenal. And I'm just happy to know you. I'm really happy that I have been in Genius Network so that I had access to know that you exist. And thank you so much for everything that you do.
Anytime you call me, it's a yes. And if you can't reach me, you got a great idea, it's a yes. So that's what family is, and that's what family does. So you keep saving them little babies, making it safer and better for them. And I got them when they get a little bit bigger.
Sounds good. We're a good team that way.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Hope you all enjoyed it. Here,
I'm going to jail now. I'm going to jail.
Going back into jail.
I'm going back to jail. I got to go to jail.
Well, be safe in there. Be safe. I'm praying. Be safe in there. This has been episode 117 of Child Care Rockstar Radio featuring Andre Norman. Thanks so much, Andre. Take care and God bless. Thank everybody for tuning in. And we'll see y'all next time.